Hey everyone, Sunday in time for a new episode of Record Collecting with the Quill. Today I've decided to discuss a very debated era in the Van Halen history, the Sammy Hagar era, or the Van Hagar era, as some of you like to refer it to. I've been listening back to all four albums they recorded between '86 and '95, and I will sort of discuss them a little bit and what I think about the area in general. But before we start, you know the drill. Make sure you subscribe, hit that little notice bell, share with your friends. Well, Van Halen. I became a fan. I'm a kid of the '80s. I've spoken about that before, and I got into Van Halen around the 1984 album with the big hits "Jump" and "Panama," and really enjoyed them. But the first album I really got as a Van Halen fan that came out as a new album was the 5150 album with Sammy Hagar. So I'm not one of those. A lot of people sort of dismiss the era totally and just go for the David Lee Roth area. But for me, something it's a little bit interesting when you grow up with something. And as I said, the Sammy Hagar era is sort of my era in a way, even though I love the earlier stuff, and I think in many ways it's a lot better. But this is sort of music you've been brought up with, so it's in your DNA somehow. So I'll discuss it and sort of try to put my personal spin on it. Starting out with this one, the 5150 album came out in 1986 and was in many ways a new start for the band. Not only getting Sammy Hagar as a singer, they found him. They had a hard time finding a singer when David Lee Roth left the band, and they found him through a mutual friend, car repairsman, who was working on both Eddie and Sammy's cars. Who it was apparently him who suggested they should get together, and apparently they hit it off immediately. It was a match made in heaven. And they also changed producer as well. Ted Templeman, who had produced all the previous albums, decided to go with David Lee Roth, and they recorded the Eat 'Em and Smile album. So they had to get some new ears to the camp, and they got Don Landee and also Mick Jones from Foreigner as well, who I think helped quite a lot with song arrangements and I think did he write a little bit as well? Well, I don't know. You tell me. But anyway, this came out in 1986 and was a huge success. It was Van Halen's and also Sammy's first #1 album on the Billboard chart, and it sort of was driven by the "Why Can't This Be Love" single. It was a smash hit in the summer of '86. And I think this is a really fun album. You could tell that they enjoy each other's company. There's a lot of high energy stuff from the first song, Good Enough, through the couple of more radio oriented songs, but Summer Nights, and you also have Get Up, and apparently you could hear it's a band who's firing on all cylinders, and some, as I said, really strong songwriting as well, and a band having a good time, and great tour as well. As I said, was really successful. They only reached America. They never came to Europe on this album, unfortunately. They rarely came to Europe in general over their career, only a few times. But as I said, this is one of those albums I have in my DNA. I listened to this one over and over and over again as a kid. And I think this is a sort of album one of those albums I have a hard time being objective about, because I listen to it in a sort of a different way from other albums. 2 years passed, and then we got a follow-up. Also really successful, #1 on the Billboard charts again. This one, Oh Yeah 812. Which I think is sort of in a way, it's a sort of part 2 of 5150. They tried to do the same thing again, but I don't think it works as good on this one. And I think there's a couple of different reasons I don't think it works. And first, the songs are not as strong, and you should probably put into the picture as well that they did the 5150 album in '86, and then Sammy and Eddie went away and did a solo album for Sammy Hagar. I had one album left to do on his deal with Geffen, so they recorded an album together in 1987, and then this one in 1988. So they did 3 albums in 3 years, and I think that's one of the reasons maybe that the songwriting is not as strong, and the production I have a little bit of a hard time with as well. Don Landy was present for this one as well, but he's not credited as a producer, more of a recorded the band, and they produced it themselves, which I don't think is not always a good idea. And I think sound-wise, it's a little bit over the place as well. You have a couple of those keyboard-oriented songs, and then you have Finish What You Started as sort of almost like a plug track, and it's a bit of a disjointed affair, but there's still some great songs. I'm really fond of the first track, Mine All Mine. Feels good. It's a good sort of melodic song as well, and a couple of others as well. But there's some stuff I'm not that fond of, like Cobble Wobble and all that stuff. There's a little bit too much tongue-in-cheek for me. It's a little bit too much Sammy Hagar beach dude, as opposed to the David Lee Roth Las Vegas style of entertaining. Cover is, as you can see, borrowed from, I think, Beatles Meet the Beatles, but it's been seen on a lot of other covers as well. But I think it sort of goes with the album. It's a little bit darker in a way, and the party has stopped after the 5150 album. Fast forward 3 years to this one, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, or FUCK, as you can shorten it if you want to. This is an album I think is back, sort of them getting back to form. They got back Ted Templeman as a producer, produced the album together with the legendary Andy Jones, and I think this one shows in a way what was the problem with the previous album. This one is a lot more it's sort of a red thread through the whole album. It's a lot more guitar oriented, and the sound is more consistent. And I think there's some great songwriting on this one as well. You have Pound Cake, you have Top of the World, I think is a great song, Run Around, and also you have the huge hit they got with Right Now, which also had a really fun video to us as well. It really helped it break the MTV charts. Also this one, the third album in a row that became #1 on the Billboard album charts. And as I said, I think this is a lot more consistent and some great songwriting and a mature album in a way, a lot more mature than OV812. I also had the privilege of seeing them on this tour. They came to Stockholm, I think it was in '92, and I saw them in a half-empty the Globe Arena in Stockholm. It was during Easter, I believe, if I remember it correctly, and was not that many people in the arena, which was kind of sad. And they only played Sweden twice during the whole career. One time in 1984, Monsters of Rock, and in 1992. But it was a great show, and I'm really glad I got to see Eddie Van Halen. As I said, since he wasn't here in Sweden that many times. But a great album. I'm quite fond of this one, actually. Then 4 years passed and a lot of things happened, and then came this one. I don't have it on. It's quite difficult and expensive to track down on vinyl, but the last album of the 4 they made with Sammy Hagar, this one called Balance, came out in 1995, and yet again they managed to occupy the #1 spot on the Billboard chart. And this album, I think there's some really strong songs. They decided to work with another producer, Bruce Fairbank, was really successful around this time. He made albums with AC/DC, and he did albums later with Kiss and stuff. But he's I don't know. I have a little bit of a hard time with the album he produces, because to me it seems like he focused on a couple of key tracks, the ones he thinks are the hits, and then he sort of leaves the rest of the album to the artist, which don't always is a good idea. And I think it shows on this one, because this is another one. It's sort of, to me, is sort of a sister album to OU812. It's all over the place again. I like the intro track. Seventh Seal is a really cool. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. It's a strong one. And listening to today, this is one album I really didn't get into it at all when it came out. As I said, I liked a couple of the first tracks, but listening to today, I also found Aftershock was a kind of a cool song. But there's some really corny stuff on this one. Can't Stop Loving You is melodic to the point of sort of way past the point. And also Amsterdam and Big Money is sort of just throwaway stuff. They are a much better band than that. But as I said, still number one album for them. But shortly afterwards, they did a tour, but then it became apparent that their time together was over, and I think it was mostly due to their old manager. The manager died, and they got a new guy in, and they had a lot of disagreements. So Sammy left the band, or if it was fired, I don't know, which put an end to a quite impressive career. As I said, they made 4 albums together, and all of them became number 1 albums on the Billboard charts, which is an impressive run. And in general, if you listen back to it, as I said, if you compare to the David Lee Roth era is something completely different, and in a way, I totally agree. It's a lot better. But as I said, these are albums that I grew up with, and as I said, the 5150 album and the 4 Unlawful Common Knowledge albums I think are really, really good, and it's in ways better than some of the stuff they did with David Lee Roth. Whereas OU812 and Balance are sort of, they have their sort of moments, but there's a lot of throwaway stuff. But you have to remember that there's some stuff on the David Lee Roth albums as well that are kind of weird. They always have a couple of sort of, for me, different weird tracks on each album. But I think they have some artistic freedom, or they have a right to artistic freedom, right? So I want to know, what do you think about the Sammy Hagar era? Is it a yay or nay? Yeah, for me it's definitely a yeah, even though I'm, as I said, really fond of the David Lee Roth era, and I think that the best of all the Van Halen albums are definitely the first one. I remember when I got that one, I think I got it shortly after 5150, and I was totally knocked by that album. There's not a single bad track on that one, and but I still love those Sammy Hagar albums as well. As I say, they have their key moments. So I'm really interested to hear your opinion. What do you think about it? Did you give it a chance? Do you enjoy it? Or do you just go for the David Lee Roth albums? Let me know in the comment section. And also make sure you follow social media. It's the QUILL Sweden. Right. Well, I'll see you all again next week with a new episode. That is for now. Cheers. Bye.